Hi everybody, my name is Megan Lee and I did my research proposal project on the effectiveness of imagery on high school basketball players shooting free throws. So to start here for my introduction, the biggest difference in separating good athletes from great athletes is their mental toughness and preparation. So everyone knows that there's so many good athletes out there. But one of the biggest difference that sets great athletes apart, such as professional athletes, collegiate athletes, is their mental toughness and their mental preparation for games and practices and so on. Imagery is a great way to make athletes mentally tough and ready for competition. So the best way to make athletes mentally tough is through imagery. Imagery is when someone is visualizing different scenarios in their mind to prepare them for a game-specific moment or pressure situation. For this project, in our case, basketball, athletes will be involved in imagery sessions to see if it helps them improve their free throw percentage. So for this project, we're focusing on basketball players and their free throw shot. Some of the articles I used, this is for the background information. Adoption of a progressive statistical analysis capable of detecting smallest relevant effects showed that using motor imagery prior to shooting free throws offers the possibility of a beneficial effect on players' performance. So this article right here, this was the closest one to what I would want to test. They didn't have as many participants in this, so it wasn't as well as it should have been. But from the results they got, it did show that imagery did help their free throw percentage when they did it before shooting. In human beings, listening to music may have effect over a diffuse bilateral network in the brain regions, such as the frontal areas, temporal, parietal, and subcortical, related to the attention, to the somatic process, to the memory, the motor functions, and to the emotional process. So later in this presentation, you'll learn that I also had some of the participants listen to music during one of their imagery sessions to see if listening to music helped as well as it being quiet. The evaluation of the athlete indicates a decrease in pregame anxiety and an improvement in game performance statistics, practice performance, and the coach's overall evaluation of the athlete. So not only does imagery help with just free throw shooting, but looking at it as a whole, it helps in multiple areas and multiple aspects of basketball as well as other sports. Athletes use imagery early in the season for predominantly cognitive specific purposes and later on for motivational reasons. Athletes in the present study use imagery more in pre-competition than any other time. So a lot of athletes will use imagery before their season starts because they are anxious and excited and ready for the season to start, and they start imagining things that they would want to do while in a game or during their season. When we look more into the season, people use imagery a lot more for motivational reasons, to help them get pumped up and ready for a game. So here's my purpose statement. The purpose of this study is to see if imagery helps high school basketball players to have a better free throw percentage. Here's my research question. Does imagery before pressure situations, such as free throw shooting, help athletes perform better than those who do not practice imagery? So I'm going to talk about it a little later in this presentation as well. But free throw shooting is one of the most pressure situations in a basketball game, and so using imagery is a great way to see if it helps those anxiety moments in their performance. Here's my methods for my research. So for this experiment, I would get 30 female high school basketball players and 30 male high school basketball players to participate. The participants will be split up into two groups, an imagery group and a non-imagery group. So 15 female athletes will go to the imagery group and 15 will go to the non-imagery group, and that will be the same for the male athletes as well. This will also be picked random. The groups will shoot 50 shots each day for 3 days, making it 150 shots total. The athletes selected randomly for the imagery group did a 10-minute session prior to shooting their free throws each day. So the non-imagery group didn't have any imagery session, they just went straight into shooting their free throws. The first 2 days of the imagery session were ran by the researcher with participants relaxing and in a quiet room. So during the first 2 sessions, the researcher or the leader conducting the session had all the participants lay down or sit in a quiet room with their eyes closed and just get their bodies relaxed. And then the researcher would walk them through what they should be imagining, things such as how the ball feels, the noises, their free throw routine, and everything like that. The last day, the participants were allowed to do their own imagery session while listening to any pregame music they wanted. So for the last day, we wanted them to run their own imagery session while listening to music to see if there was any difference between being relaxed and in a quiet room doing imagery or while listening to music, which usually gets you more pumped up and ready for games. The researcher would then record each athlete's makes and misses for their free throws. The imagery group's scores would be compared to the non-imagery group as well as their shooting percentages from previous seasons. So we didn't want to just test the imagery group with the non-imagery group. We wanted to also see if the group that participated in the imagery part, if their free throw percentage increased at all or was better from years or seasons past. So here's the application. The free throw is one of the most important shots in basketball. It is a very high pressure shot that can be very mental. If athletes prepare for this shot mentally, they will be able to shoot and perform better in those pressure situations. It was found that imagery, after doing this project and reading a variety of articles, it was found that imagery does help improve free throw percentages. And then here's the conclusion. When using imagery, athletes feel less anxiety and are more confident in themselves and their abilities. Imagery can help improve in all areas of an athlete's game, but when we see it here the most is in those pressure situations. So from this project I've learned that imagery is a great tool to use for all sports and in all areas of the game, but we see the biggest impact in those pressure situations, and for example for my project we see it a lot in the free throw percentage. So I hope you guys learned a little something from my presentation. Thank you for listening, and good luck in the rest of the class.